Let's address the elephant in the room. What exactly is the difference between performance marketing for a B2C business versus a B2B business? Before that, for those who are not aware of these terminologies, let me give you a hint. A B2C is a business selling to consumers, whereas a B2B is a business selling to another business. To give you an example, a B2C example would be a P&G, who manufactures, shampoo, soap, toothpaste, and all everything, right? Under the sun. So they sell these products are used by consumers. They sell to consumers, so they are most likely B2C business. Whereas on the other side, if you take company like Infosys or Wipro or Intuit, these are some of the popular companies who do not really sell to consumers, they sell to other businesses in the world. So that's the fundamental difference between these two businesses. And most likely, people have a lot of excitement typically around B2C. People usually think that only B2C companies spend a lot on performance marketing. That's not true. To give you an instance, I work with a number of B2B brands across the world. Nearly 80% of their marketing budget, I'm talking about the overall marketing budget, is spent online. All right. So, and there is a lot of potential, and especially if you're somebody who is starting or trying to launch a career in performance marketing, B2B is a fantastic. It is much more organized. It's much more sophisticated. There is a ton of opportunities when it comes to B2B. Having said that, let's take a look at these differences. All right. Not a lot of difference, if you ask me. End of the day, you are actually selling to a human on the other side, or you're trying to build a relationship with a human on the other side. Doesn't mean that, in B2B businesses, you'll be talking only to machines. Even in B2B business, you're talking to human on the other side. So the fundamentals of marketing doesn't really change. If you recall, the audiences that we have discussed about P1, P2, P3, that exists for B2B as well. To give you some context, how does a P1, P2, P3 difference? I have a few examples as well, which you will look at. Somebody who doesn't know what can solve their pain point. Let's say I have a company and I have hiring problems or I have retention problems. I would go to Google and I search for these pain points. Okay, how do I solve my hiring problems? Right? This is when I am in P3. I'm not really aware of anything that can solve my problem. So P2 audience are people who are aware of products that can solve this problem or services or companies that can solve this problem, but they're not sufficiently motivated to solve the problem. For example, I might be aware of consultancies that can hire people for me. I know of platforms or products that can actually speeden up or fasten up the hiring process for me. So there are different things that I am aware of. For the pain point that I already have, I am aware of there are multiple things that can actually solve my problem. P1 is when I am totally sold on a specific concept and I'm in the market looking to buy a product. Let's say, for an example, I am in the market looking for a CRM software. I know for a fact, there are a ton of companies like Freshworks, Zoho and Salesforce and all these companies that are doing CRM. Now I'm almost in the final verge of just comparing between these products and I will make a decision of buying that product. So now I am P1. So you get the idea, right? The fundamentals do not change, but the way marketing works, change slightly. It depends on the buyer, it depends on a few other factors, and those are the factors that we are going to look at now. Okay. Broadly speaking, these are the three stages of performance marketing. Like I always say, there is P1, P2, P3. You will find one more terminologies, and as you move forward in this mentorship program, you have to get yourself familiarized with terminologies. For example, if you're a P1 audience, if you're going after P1, then there is this communication called direct response that works very well. If it is a P2, somebody who is not really sold, you will have to probably do a little more. This is generally referred as a warm audience or a re-engagement funnel. Yeah, so you will have to probably do a little more effort to convince that person to bring them to P1. Then finally, P3, if it's a P3 audience, then you need a full funnel approach. When I say full funnel approach, you have to start with awareness, then get them to engage, then you bring them down the funnel, and finally you get them to become a hot audience where you can sell your product or service to. Right. So this is called a full funnel approach. So don't get confused with the terminologies. As we move forward, you will understand, and I will show you a few examples as well in terms of how, in reality, these things work. Okay. So how does it look like? You're looking at an intercom example, very popular, my most favorite product And I actually learn a lot from them in terms of how they do marketing. Like I always say, right? There is only so much you can do yourself. There are so many things that you can learn from others, who have already done this successfully. Now, if you look at it, I have bifurcated the communication for almost the same product. What they do is, they sell chatbots, okay, intercom. So if you see their communication for different audiences, if for the P3 audience, where you need a full funnel approach and you need to do a lot of awareness, they are actually starting the conversation with thought leadership content. For example, this is an ebook which talks about why conversational support is now critical for your business, right? When something like this is there, and people don't hesitate because it is generally educational in nature. Now, people are going to read that study and see how it is going to impact their business, right? Then there is P2 communication. People who already know this thing exists, but they're not sufficiently motivated to solve the problem. If you look at this P2 communication, Intercom is talking about how they've been rated as top software by G2, for a specific function. So now this actually piques my interest. Okay, I'm aware that conversational chatbots can actually solve my problem, and I am in the market looking for somebody who is reputed. Maybe this communication will impress me. And finally, there is a P1 audience communication, which is direct response in nature. Build a bot in minutes. I am aware that I need to be building a bot to solve the problem. I am just looking for an easy solution that is easy for me to implement. Then this communication works for me. Build a bot in minutes, no code required, get started. Very straightforward. So that is called direct response because it communicates something direct and it expects a response immediately. Whereas the other two, if you look at it, it doesn't really expect a response. The first one is more like you read this material. The second one is more like credibility, right? Hey, I am one of the best when it comes to this particular pain point that you're looking for. P1 is very, very straightforward. It actually tells this is what I can do for you. You can get started. This is called direct response communication. So let me show you one more example. The previous one that you looked at is display ads. Now you need to be looking at how search ads, how P1, P2, P3 can work for search ads as well. As a P3 audience, somebody who is not aware of anything, let's say I run a small business, I go to Google and I search for small business software. That what are the softwares that I need to have as a small business? And I can see that, Atlassian is running an ad and there is a work plan that is running an ad. First of all, I'm getting to know that, okay, there is this company called Atlassian and they're telling me they have something called ticketing system and it can actually solve ticketing issues. And if I'm a small business, I'll definitely think about it. Okay, maybe we're doing this manually. Maybe we need a software to solve this. And Atlassian is one of the company that is doing it. So I am getting to know, okay, I need a ticketing system first of all. So I need a little bit of awareness. So I go to Google and I look for ticketing software. Okay. Now when I search for ticketing software, again, I see a bunch of companies. There is Zendesk, Freshdesk, and Atlassian once again. All right. And, everybody is saying they're number one. That's okay. That's how marketing generally works. You make tall claims. So everybody is claiming number one. And, but I see Atlassian once again. The third ad is Atlassian. While it is not really a great form of an ad copy, but it works, because somebody who was getting to know ticketing software now searching for ticketing software, I'm still showing up in front of them, which means the frequency is number two. And I've already sort of started registering in their mind. Now the same audience is sufficiently motivated. They know that they're aware of there are 3-4 products that are available in the market. They need to evaluate the effectiveness because they need to make their decision now. What I do as a P1 audience is I search for different software like Zendesk versus Freshdesk ticketing software because then I got to know about the number one rated software in my previous search. If you see that Freshdesk is running an ad, they have a very beautiful ad which talks about Freshdesk versus the others because I'm searching for a comparison. So they better have something for me telling that why they are the better than others. Then there is Zendesk also have a very similar kind of an ad copy, how we are better than others. And then there is Atlassian, which is kind of very similarly using that communication of we are the number one ticketing software, right? When we are number one, there is no comparison. That is what they're trying to do. But all the three times across the stages, there was Atlassian, right? I think by showing up, they have done a pretty good job. But without looking at the data, you can't really comment whether this particular ad is working for them versus what Zendesk and Freshdesk is doing. But if you ask me, all the three of them have done a superior job. But Atlassian has done a kick-ass job. having a communication that is meant for all the three of them, and they showed up every time. Maybe their bids are high, maybe they're bidding on all the keywords. You never know unless you can evaluate that ad account, right? So this is how it can work for search, wherein you need to show up for audiences who are not aware of you, audiences who are in the market looking for products similar to you, and there are audiences who are comparing you with someone else. So you need to be showing up every time if you are looking at that customer converting. Even if you miss out on once, if the customer remembers you, great. If they remember your name, that's fantastic. That is why branding is very important. What if they do not remember you? Then it becomes a problem, right? Unless they have visited your landing page, you can't even retarget them. And forget about email ID, because when they haven't visited your landing page, how would you figure out their email ID? Right? So these guys are doing a pretty good job. And this can actually, made possible by search retargeting campaign as well. There is something called remarketing list for search ads, RLSA. When we talk about Google Ads in detail, we will talk about that as well. That how you can use RLSA efficiently in order to show up every time in front of a customer, whether you are bidding for a specific keyword or not. Yeah. So that's another pro tip. Now let's talk about few more differences between performance marketing in B2B versus B2C. It is mostly to do with the buyer. Okay. First is, what is the buying behavior of these people? In B2C, it is mostly emotional driven. Okay. For example, if you have a need to eat, you will order grocery. If you want to work more efficiently, you will order a monitor, or you would order faster internet connectivity. Everything is, kind of your own emotion driven. You need something better, and you're going for it. Some of that can be rational as well, but most of the buying decisions in B2C happens emotionally. For example, luxury vacations. There is no pain point solving here. Luxury vacations are sold for desires. Since you needed a break, you wanted to take a luxury vacation. It's more of emotion driven, right? On the B2B, on the other side, it has nothing to do with emotions. It is mostly rational. If I am a business owner, I need somebody who can solve my problem. I need somebody who will help me save my time. I need somebody who will help improve my profits and bottom line. So it is very, very rational. Unless my business desperately needs it, I'm unlikely to make that decision. So that is a predominant difference in buying behavior. B2C is mostly emotional. You can actually use really cool copy, bring out that desire in that person, write different kind of, bring in influencer, and do all of that, jazzy stuff, to impress a customer to buy a product. Whereas B2B is mostly rational. Unless you're solving a specific pain point for that particular customer, they're not going to buy you. That is the fundamental difference in terms of buying behavior. Then another major difference is the sales cycle. In B2C, the sales cycle is usually shorter. So what do I mean by sales cycle? Is the time that it takes for somebody to buy a product. For example, if I want a soap or a shampoo, or I want to buy potato chips, or I want to order a pizza, or I want to buy something from Myntra, or I want to go to a store and buy something for myself, a good smartphone. All of this is usually shorter. I know some of you may actually research a lot. I have a friend of mine, who actually was doing research for almost 3 years before he bought his first expensive smartphone. He almost researched for about 7 years, the same person, 7 years before he actually bought a car. Every car reviews he would have gone through, and then, then he finally bought a car last year. But, most of the customers are not, they generally, if you get a salary hike, you would have probably had something in mind and you will immediately buy it, or you will save something towards a specific goal and you will buy that, be it a refrigerator, be it an apparel, any of these products. It's usually shorter. It's not longer. You don't think about it for a long period of time and then buy it unless the product is expensive. Most of the products that are about 2000 or 1000 or 500, 30, you will actually make that buying decision very quickly. Whereas a B2B on the other side, even if it is a very cheap product, it takes longer decisions. It takes longer sales cycle, because businesses take a lot of time to do their research, to compare different vendors. They will do a lot of due diligence in terms of whether they actually need it or not. And then there are different people who are involved in taking that decision. So even if you are a very cheap product, it will still take a good few months to convince that business to buy you, right? That is main difference. You need to understand, especially if you're in B2B marketing, you cannot be running a Facebook ad on conversions and expect people to convert. That won't work like that. So B2B works in slightly different way. And hence I said, though you're selling to a human on the other side, it is not really, the way you do the marketing is slightly different. And we will talk about a lot of those examples, so don't worry about it. Okay. The next one is a buyer type. If it is a B2C product, right, most likely the end user, will be taking that decision. And there is probably an influencer, that could be a friend or a family member, or it could be a parents, or it could be your siblings, it could be anyone. So mostly these are, the people that are involved in making a buying decisions or influencing you. Let's say I'm in the process of buying a motorcycle, and my friend has told me to consider a Royal Enfield, okay, and he's an influencer. So I was in the process of buying a bike, and my friend has convinced me to look into Royal Enfield. Then I make that decision. I went and took a trial, what do you call it, test drive. I really liked it. Then I went ahead and bought it. This is how a typical B2C cycle works. Whereas the B2B, there are multiple people generally involved. Let's say if you're selling a software, there is a person who is using that software. There is a person that is influencing a decision, and there is a final decision maker who's actually taking that decision. If I have to talk about a small company, and let's say if you're selling a software like Slack, Slack is used by almost all the employees. The employees would have gone ahead and told their managers, look, we need something like Slack to streamline communication. Then the manager makes up a case for it. He compares different products, between Slack and, different other communication products. And he takes it to the CEO, and the CEO again looks at all the benefits that is being offered. He is asking for a cost benefit analysis. He's looking at his pipeline revenue and all of that. Then he takes that decision. So there are typically multiple people involved in actually for a sale to happen. And if it is a B2B service, even more, there are procurement people that are involved. There are legal folks that are involved. So many people are actually involved in a B2B sale. Compare that to a B2C sale, where only a couple of people are involved in that final decision. Okay. The another thing that you need to understand, because a lot of e-commerce online B2B websites are emerging, and I'm not talking about the Flipkart. I'm talking about industrial buying, industrial selling, right? That kind of websites where things happen in bulk, where people buy in bulk, businesses buy from other businesses online, right? The way payment works, you need to understand that. Whenever, let's say if I'm selling a smartphone to somebody, I'm asking them to make a payment. Either they will swipe the card for full amount, or they will do an EMI. But still, I'm getting that payment immediately. So the payment cycle is much shorter. Whereas on the B2B, most of the times it works on credit basis. For example, let's say if you hire me as an agency, and you will tell me, look, I need a 60-day credit period, which means I deliver the services for a month. At the end of the month, I raise an invoice for you. And then after 2 months, you'll have 60 days to make that payment, because most of your own vendors and suppliers and stuff like that, and they will be taking their own sweet time to make that payment. And that is why, businesses always work on credit. So you need to understand this very well. And hence, the typical Facebook conversion campaign or a Google conversion campaign doesn't necessarily work in B2B. It can actually help you generate a lead, but the sale doesn't happen at one go. It is not like B2C at all. So that is another primary difference that you need to understand. In terms of performance marketing, B2C is mostly lead gen and direct sales. For example, if you have an e-commerce website, or let's say a furniture website, or you're selling apparel, or you could be selling confectionaries, anything, right? You'll be very likely running these conversion campaigns, and you expect people to click on the ad and buy. The sale happen directly. Or if it is a longer sales cycle, something like a real estate or insurance product, which is slightly expensive in nature, and it takes a lot of time to make that decision, then you'll be running lead gen campaigns. For example, you will be driving traffic to a landing page, getting them to fill up a form, and then your salespeople will call them over a period of time, and they'll eventually convert them into a customer. B2B, not much of a difference. It's just that the direct sales do not happen. Unlike e-commerce website where you go add product to the cart and then buy, it doesn't necessarily happen. B2B, again, lead gen is still there. Then there is lead nurturing, which means once I generate the lead, I need to keep them engaged, because I told you it can take anywhere from 3 months all the way up to 3 years to close the B2B deal. And generating a lead is not sufficient. You need to keep the lead engaged, in this 3 months to 3 years. And that is called lead nurturing. And then there is closure. While you are doing this lead nurturing, at some point, they might want to take that decision of going with you. And that stage is called closure, which means, you've closed that deal, you've closed that business. and then they become your customer, and then the credit cycle start once again. You deliver the services, or if you're a product, they might subscribe to you either on an annual basis or a monthly subscription basis. Then you have to get them to renew it. That's how typically it works in B2B. So let us look at a couple of examples. One B2C example and one B2B. Okay, so this is Man Company, a B2C example. As you can see, they sell anything from hair product and and whatnot, for face wash and so many other things. They keep selling. So in a buying decision in this case is actually quite simple if you look at it. While it may look quite simple, okay, I'm in the need of buying a hair gel or a face wash or something to do with hair care or beauty, anything like that, right? Typically, the way it works is, either I get to know about this brand with the help of an ad, or I was in Google searching for something, or I was in Amazon searching for something. Then I look at ratings, then I read reviews, and I also see some influencer promoting this product, an influencer I like. So there are typically a lot of these things involved before that buying decision happen. I seek validation with my friends. Let's say once I use any of this face wash and stuff like that, if somebody compliments me, which means I'm going to continue buying that product. If people tell me that, hey, it has become dry and you look dull, then I know that product is not working. Then I go back to the same stage again where I'm looking for other alternatives. So what you're seeing here is a typical journey of a customer. They start by researching, then they get an idea. Then they go about comparing different people. Then they talk to their friends for validation. They buy the product, start using it. Once they start using it, again, the validation piece comes in. And if their social counterparts, if their friends and neighbors, they appreciate it, they again buy that product. If they don't appreciate it, they go back to the same thing again, looking for another product. Okay. So this is a typical B2C consumer journey. And at every stage, something happens. And that is why as a brand, you need to be omnipresent. You cannot just run campaigns on Facebook and expect to be scaling up, because the customer is not only hanging out on Facebook. Look at what the customer is doing. They're going to Google, they're going to YouTube, they're following influencers. All these things are happening, but in making a decision, and doesn't necessarily happen with a low value product, but most of the B2C products, this happens, this journey happens. Okay. Now let's look at a B2B example. This is a B2B SaaS product, very favorite product of mine, Intuit QuickBooks. I used to work with them. Intuit QuickBooks is a SaaS product. They sell accounting software for small businesses, and they have a free trial, and they have a monthly subscription plan and an annual subscription plan. I think they have an annual subscription plan, which means you take up the free trial, you buy the product, pay the annual subscription, and then once the year is over, then you renew that product again. This is a B2B SaaS. This is the B2B SaaS journey as well. In this case, the consumer journey is slightly different. If you look at this particular thing, there is a trigger. First of all, like I showed you an example of small business software. I went to Google and looked up for small business software. There is a trigger, which means as a rational decision, I find something inefficient, which means I need to look out for a product or service that can solve this problem. So that's a trigger. Then I go to the market, look out for different solutions that are available, and I'm trying to get myself educated. Then I compare between different people and I make that buying decision. Okay. Once that buying decision happens with B2B, there is always a customer service on the other side, who is helping me, get used to the product, who's helping me to use the product efficiently or a service efficiently. If it is service, there is usually a relationship manager on the other side. So the relationship continues, and as long as the relationship is going strong, both of them are happy. The buyer is also happy and the seller is also happy. And if we continue to be having a happy relationship, then the renewal cycle happens. Okay. Just, one more difference is, this is a B2C, B2B SaaS product I was talking about. This is actually a B2B enterprise service company, Accenture.com. Whereas, first of all, Accenture sells to other businesses, and for them to close a deal, it may take anywhere from 6 months to 5 years, because these deals run into millions of dollars. All right. In this cycle, the typical consumer journey that I showcased may not happen. Here is where lead nurturing happens. First, you try and get somebody to interested in what you have to offer with thought leadership. Then you get them to fill up a lead form. Then you keep the lead engaged. Then you understand their requirements, offer them a custom proposal. It takes longer. Okay, it takes anywhere from 6 months to 5 years, sometimes even beyond that. But once you get that customer, you actually have them for at least 3 years or at least 5 years. Companies like Accenture sign up customers for 10 years and 20 years like that, which is why, they are a monster that they are today. Okay. So that's, in a nutshell, the predominant differences between B2B and a B2C business. And we will have a ton of examples as we go in our mentorship program. We will have a lot of examples, good B2B and B2C examples. But meanwhile, what I want you to do is I want you to start reading about these things. It's very important. It doesn't mean whether you're interested in only B2C or whether you're interested in only B2B. It is very important for a marketer for you to understand how these things work. Okay, so start reading about it, and whenever you find something interesting, a good B2B product and a B2C product, just share it in the community. Just ask people for their opinion. Yeah, what they think about it, because we all can learn from each other. So use the community to your best use. If you have any doubts, just ask. If you find anything interesting, share. Sharing is caring. So start doing that. I'll see you in the next chapter.